Next up, we have GitPod, and I'm very excited about this one. I actually have been working on a GitPod-Redwood integration, and you guys have been fantastic to help. And I've started just to get a glimpse of everything that GitPod can do. So I'm very excited to see your presentation. Thanks, Sean, for joining us.
Thank you, Amy. It's good to be here. Before I start, how's my sound coming through?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. Got a new microphone. Want to make sure it sounds okay.
Silky smooth.
Cool. Let's share my window. And off we go. Is the share? Yeah, it looks like it's working. Excellent.
Looks great.
So hello, live listeners and people of the future. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean Carolyn, and I'm a sales engineer at GitPod, the leading provider of cloud development environments, or CDEs. Today, I'm going to talk about how GitPod can help you and your team be more productive by providing a consistent, reproducible, and shareable development environment for your projects. We're happy to be partners of RedwoodJS because we share a similar goal of helping remove friction from the software developers world. So here's the problem that GitPod aims to solve. A recent study has shown that most developers waste at least 2 hours a week just fighting with their local dev environments instead of writing code. Now, this is hugely inefficient. If you think about how much your developers are paid, and then the fact that most of them are spending 100 hours a year wrestling with dependency issues, mismatched software libraries, and a plethora of other issues that are common to your local dev environments. Well, you can do the math yourself for your own world. So enter GitPod. What is GitPod? GitPod is essentially your powerful developer laptop in the cloud. Think about how much time and trouble it takes to install a new dev laptop. You have to install your IDEs, your runtime environments, your libraries and plugins, all your credentials and personal settings. Sometimes this process can take days or even weeks before your developers even get on the starting block and start contributing code. And all this busy work that gets in the way of your devs, who really just want to sit down and write some code and test it. So our motto is always ready to code. GitPod was designed by developers for developers, and we do eat our own dog food. So we actually use GitPod to develop GitPod. We believe that browser-based development environments that run in the cloud are the future. And the good news is the future is here today. You can use GitPod for free. We've got a generous free tier that allows up to 50 hours a month of workspace runtime. So even a bootstrap startup with little or no budget can actually use GitPod and get started easily. GitPod can run on our SaaS platform. It's called GitPod Cloud. And for larger teams, we also have a dedicated offering that runs in your cloud account. GitPod is highly customizable, and it includes a powerful runtime environment where you can easily spin up copies of your app for testing and validation. Finally, GitPod is secure and compliant because it gets your source code and secrets off those developer laptops and onto much more secure, ephemeral environments that are easier to audit and lock down. So next, I'd like to show you a demo of GitPod running RedwoodJS. And if you'd like to follow along at home, you can even use the same tutorial that I'm about to use for the demo here. So RedwoodJS is all about helping startups not have to fight their framework and get productive, developing and delivering apps. It kind of ties together all these common tools, so you don't have to go stitch them together yourself. And at GitPod, we have a similar mission. We want to just provide you an always ready dev environment that you can spin up in seconds. So this is the demo. I'll go ahead and try and drop a copy of this into the chat. See if that works. If you'd like to follow along at home, all you need is a free GitPod account. And the whole tutorial is contained within this repo. There's a handy Open in GitPod button here. So if we simply click this button, we come to the GitPod dashboard where we can create a new workspace. As you can see, there are some settings you can change. We've got a bunch of different options for IDEs. Today, we're just going to go with the default, which is Visual Studio Code running in your browser. So the workspace is provisioning. And the first time you do this, it'll take a little longer because it's got to go ahead and install all of the dependencies and plugins for Visual Studio Code. So you'll start to see that spinning up here in the background. The extensions are activating. There's a yarn command that's running to build out the environment. I've already got one of these pre-provisioned, so we don't have to watch it stand up. But this really doesn't take that long, just a few minutes. And then what's nice is you can pause the workspace. You can come back to it later, and everything will be right where you left it. So it's really convenient and fun to work with. This is a list of all the other workspaces that I have running or have paused. And I just want to point this out to show you that each one of these is like having a separate developer laptop, right? So each one's a full-fledged independent environment. If I were to try to do this in a local dev environment, I would need 10 or 11 laptops to achieve the same result. So here is the pre-provisioned workspace. It's got the tutorial preloaded up here in the top. So we'll just go ahead and jump in and see how easy it is to get started with Redwood. I can see that the app or the basic Redwood, homepage, welcome page is up and running. And what we want to do is go ahead and create, basic framework, right, for a simple CRUD app. So we just want to be able to create, delete, read, all the basic stuff that you want to do. You can always get help here with the help command. But the first thing we want to do is take care of the database. So we're going to use Prisma to kind of migrate and configure this database here. So we'll copy this, and then we're going to go into the API DB, open our schema, and I need to copy this first. And then we're going to replace the model. Oops, looks like I missed a line. So we'll try again. Oh, I see what's happening. It didn't grab the first. Yeah, it looks healthy. Okay, excellent. And then we're going to just run this command here. Oh, looks like I had a little clipboard malfunction. We'll just try again with typing. And then we want to just call this create posts. Nice. So RW, if you're curious, is short for Redwood, saves you a few keystrokes as you run these commands. And now we can go ahead and run this scaffold command to get everything we need for our little CRUD create, retrieve, update, delete app. Let's see if my paste is behaving. No, it's still grabbing the wrong thing. So we'll just go ahead and I think if I use the keyboard shortcut, it's better. There we go. So it's roping together all the dependencies, setting up the scaffolding, everything we need to have a basic functional app, right? So if you think about, a new startup, how hard is it to go and configure all these tools separately, right? It's a real challenge to just even get your dev environment going. And you can see how just in a matter of a couple minutes, we've got basically a little guest book app, right? Say. Hey, neat. Our app is working. So let's continue with the tutorial. Some other things you can do. We talked a little bit about Storybook earlier, and Storybook is definitely included. So we can run yarn rw Storybook. And Storybook's great because it lets you kind of just jump right in and start working on design before you even know how the data models are going to look in their final condition, right? So that no longer is a blocker. Your front-end devs can start to think about the look and feel of the app before you've got all of the details worked out on the back end. So there's Storybook. Confess, I haven't used Storybook much, but it seems to be working. So we'll open a new terminal and continue our journey. Testing. It's essential. It's really important. And almost nobody does it. Why? Because it's a pain, right? It's hard. Redwood makes this really easy, including Jest. So out of the box, you get some useful testing for your app. You could just run yarn rw test. And a basic test suite will fire up and let you see how they pass. Hey, it looks pretty good. We're passing everything. So that looks healthy. And then finally, I won't be able to run this step because I don't have a target environment yet, but you can ship your app too. So here are some of the options you can use. We'll just show the different targets you can use for deploying your app. So built-in support for a bunch of different options. All those are there. And then you also have several options for auth providers. So this is just a real quick little taste of what it feels like to develop using RedwoodJS and GitPod. And if you'd like to try it yourself, you can head over to our Getting Started page. This will help you get up and running quickly with GitPod. And then you've got the Redwood link there in the chat as well. And so that's the end of the demo and presentation. Pretty quick and easy. GitPod wants to be the tool that just gets out of your way and lets you write code.
Thank you so much, Sean. Really do appreciate you and taking the time to pitch. I think one thing that has been really interesting to me that you did not mention is that GitPod will also integrate with your PRs. So if you're having to review somebody's code, you can pull up their implementation directly within GitPod. You don't have to do a Git clone and get everything up and running on your machine and fight with all that. You can use it as part of your development process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't touch on that. For the less or non-technical folks in the audience, a PR is a pull request. So if your developer makes some changes on their own machine, they need to have someone else take a look at those changes and test those changes and eventually merge those changes back into your brand, to the master copy of your code so it can go to production. And this process is often really painful. It's really slow and hard, and it's hard to set up an environment that looks like someone else's environment. Sometimes we call this, it runs on my machine problem, right? Like if Amy has got her environment all customized and set up and she says, hey, I've got this pull request. Now I've got to take a bunch of time out of my day to go and reproduce whatever Amy built. And GitPod makes that much, much easier because now you simply have a button. I can look at what Amy did, the changes she makes, and then click the Open in GitPod button. And just like you saw me reproduce that environment, we can do the same thing and bring ourselves right to the point at which Amy committed the code, right? So we could see exactly what Amy was seeing in her pull request.
Yep, that's right. Yoko, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think just when I was watching the demo, it's just one idea that popped in my head. So when we do kind of development, we always have to share like a demo version of the app to someone else. And then this kind of solves that problem too, where it's basically being able to share your local host that's always up to someone else instead of deploy to staging or another environment. So super cool demo.
Yeah, it's a super common problem for developers. We write our code, and then where do we run it? Localhost, right? Which means your own machine. And now how do I share that app so other people can see it? So what we've done is taken that whole environment, put it in the cloud so that you can you can preview the app yourself, like we just did, or you didn't show this in the demo, but you can click a little switch that will turn it on and share the dev version of the app with anyone else who needs to see it. So it kind of neatly solves for that problem of like, well, how do I check someone else's work, right? And see what it looks like in a browser.
Keith?
Sean, this is neat. I have two things. One, thank you for stepping through the tutorial, because I think the reluctance for a hack like me is, well, will I really be able to do all these things that I need to do? That is the very steps that you walk through in the tutorial. So thanks for doing that. You've convinced me. Number two, yesterday in Maker Hour, so Redwood Maker Hour is a weekly venue, 1 o'clock Pacific, where we gather and talk shop. And we make rounds around the virtual table, kind of like this. And in my session, I fired up GitPod, and we cloned a repo and used it. It was really neat. It worked. It was the AI.jsx repo. This AI.jsx crew will be at the Redwood conference hosting a workshop. So I'm digging in advance. So my commitment as I get familiar with that tool is I'll use GitPod to dig into it.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, we really feel like the time is right for browser-based software. If you look even in other industries, Canva, came on the scene because Photoshop is hard, right? Just want to build a poster or something, and Canva, using browser-based technology, put graphic design in the hands of millions of people. So we kind of want to be the same thing for the world of developers. In the past, I know folks sometimes are hesitant because browser-based software used to really suck. It was like kind of kludgy, and you think of clunky CRMs and tools that don't feel user-friendly. Speaking from experience, though, it really is Visual Studio Code, and we still support the local version too. If you really want to keep with what you're doing and run VSC or your own IDE on your laptop, we do have extensions that allow you to just connect remotely and use the same IDE you're comfortable with. So thanks. Cool. We're glad to hear you're using the platform.
Jayesh?
Yeah, Sean, great presentation. I mean, I remember a time when we used to, put aside 1 week for environment and IDE setup when new engineers used to join, or, you would get a new laptop or a new computer, and it's come such a long way. Take your repository, pull it in, and you're up and running. So I think it's great. I really also, I think what Yoko said was very interesting, like just with pull requests and collaborative coding. So I'm certainly going to give it a try. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. Well, Sean, thank you so much to you and to GitPod. We really do appreciate you and value your involvement in the Redwood community. So thank you.
Thanks so much. We enjoy working with you.
Awesome.